Hi everyone, I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and tonight is the 8th night of Hanukkah, and this is the 8th video of the ChemKnits Chanukah celebration. Tonight we are going to bring some more sparkle and shine into our Hanukkah celebration by dyeing some Knit Picks Alex, this beautiful shimmery, hopefully you can see that shimmer, yarn. This fingering weight yarn is 66% baby alpaca, 33% Lurex, which gives us this metallic shimmer. Like a few of the yarn bases that I have dyed during this Hanukkah special, I have never dyed this one before. This is not technically a bare yarn, but I did get the colorway cream. And the first thing that I need to do is go wind these balls into some circular hanks. But don't worry, it is the 8th night of Hanukkah, but there is one other video that will be coming out right after this one that will show me dye the bonus add-on colorway that was included in some of the Hanukkah samplers that I sent out. In my dedicated dye steam pan, I added 4 cups of water, and now I'm going to add half of a cup of white vinegar. This is now fairly acidic and concentrated, but I'm going to be adding more liquid as I add my pre-soaked yarn to the container. And when I'm adding the yarn, I am not really wringing it out. I am just sort of plopping it in directly from the pre-soak. And so therefore this is bringing some additional liquid with the yarn. Actually, I might end up squeezing out the last 2 that I put in. I know that I'm putting in 6 skeins, but these are each 50-gram skeins of yarn. And so I've routinely done 3 at a time in this pan. But I'm just quickly adding things before rearranging it. And alright, I want the water level to be such that the water is just, that the yarn is just like above the water. Because I know that if the dye strikes the water first, the colors will spread. But if it can strike the yarn first, then it'll strike closer to the fiber, and we might get more speckles versus splotches. Now that everyone is vinegary, I'm going to rearrange this a little bit so that way the skeins are a little more on their side. These are fairly skinny already, but I'm just getting them a bit more lined up. There we go. I will separate the fibers a bit in a moment. I guess they're all pretty good. I have no idea what kind of coverage we'll get, how fast the colors will strike. I'm realizing that my best efforts to arrange 50-gram skeins like I would 100-gram skeins isn't necessarily working perfectly, but I do think I have a good surface here to start speckling. So I am now going to, I'm now turning on the heat so we can start heating this up. And then as needed, as we're getting the heat started, I will shimmy this in the pot to try to distribute the heat. I just reduced the heat because we're at a good bubble and I know things are pretty hot. Remove those nylon ties while up the way. And unfortunately my hands got a bit steamy, so I'm just drying them off. And the dye today we are using is Jacquard Acid Dyes number 621 Sky Blue. And I've added a little powder into this cup so that way I can sort of grip it. And now I am just adding some speckles. I can see already the colors are spreading out more than I had seen with like the black and the violet when I had tried this before. It is a very nice blue though. So I may have been a little too heavy-handed with it right off the bat. This is definitely feeling a little more splotched than speckled. There are some itty-bitty specks, but yeah, this is sort of reminding me of the Kool-Aid on Silk, where things were less sharp. Over here, there's a spot where I still see things that are very, very like speckly, but I'm gonna reduce the heat a little more. I mean, this color is gorgeous, don't get me wrong. Yeah, I think from here, I'm gonna cover this with some foil and give it a little bit of time before I try to move it around. This was the second time I have ever tried this technique. The first time that I tried it was actually last week when I was filming Dyebath Weekly number 78. And I feel like I did this very similarly to the way I did there. I do see some little blue specks, and I think the most successful area is actually down here in this corner that you might not be able to see well. You know what? I'm seeing some speckles. I think maybe it just took a minute. Here, let me give you a closer look. There's a splotch, but there's definitely some like speckling going on here amongst the different patches. It is subtle, but ooh, there's some good ones. But I think, yeah, I was a little heavy-handed. This could still look very speckled without the sharp, sharp specks. I'm going to cover this to both, oh no, I guess I'll be covering it like that because this isn't big enough. I'm going to cover this both for heat and to keep some heat in and to keep moisture in. But I'll come back in 5 minutes. All right. Things seem to have stayed fairly much in place. And actually, yeah, they seem to have struck pretty well. Like I'm not, even on these other sections, I'm not seeing any color come up, which I think is good. So now let's just try en masse to, oh dear, this was working better in theory. Oh, that actually wasn't so bad. To flip it all over. This is why I like using these zip ties. I have no idea how good our coverage is. I probably should have checked that before I went to flip, but I could look under a bit, I suppose. I have no idea how shallow or not shallow the coverage was, and so therefore how much color we feel like we need to add now. But at least we know that it is striking pretty quickly. And I still see lots and lots of shimmery, shimmer, so that is also pretty good. I feel like of all of the Hanukkah colorways I've been playing with this week, this is the most like literal, like blue and white. Okay, I'm going like more sparse this time. Less splotch, more speck. And that is still, even so, is still being fairly splotch-tacular, if you catch my drift. Want some on the tops there, and down here. Oh, that was a bigger splotch. Okay, I think that maybe I was just a little too enthusiastic. I think there's a reason why people do cut their dyes with citric acid or something, because when they want to speckle, because you can get a little bit more control over where the colors go, but I'm definitely, I think it's hard to see on camera, but I'm definitely seeing things that count as speckles. I'm going to reduce the heat again, cover this up, and we'll come back in 5 minutes and try to get a better idea of how our coverage is doing. Been 5 minutes, and all right, this time we definitely got some speckles. And as I'm moving it down, maybe a tinge of blue, but I think that maybe like before some of the color was just like too close to the surface. But all right, I'm getting better at this. Let me bring you closer. Yeah, there's some definite speckle action going on here. When I tried this on a superwash yarn, the coverage was pretty good. So let's just go and grab skeins. This is skein number 2. Let's see. Okay, over there I don't think that we could do another pass potentially. I'm sort of picking up every other one. I mean, it's not bad, all things considered. Like, there's some areas with less, but as a whole, it doesn't feel too shabby. Okay, why don't I... Okay, so this one's looking pretty good. But maybe I can't decide if we want to do one more pass. Maybe we want to do one more like super light pass. This is not too hot, so I'm not like burning myself by doing this. Eek. Okay, that was a little hot. Just trying to see where we might have missed anything. Just looking for big silver patches that could use a little bit more blue. But if I look inside, I think it's actually fairly reasonable. But let's see this one. Okay. All right. Speckling round 3. All right. I'm barely even, like, I've got a pinch of it in my fingers and I'm barely even moving them apart. Oh, there goes a bigger, like, splotch. But it's just, like, teeny amounts of powder coming out. Gotta bring some color to the rounds, but I did not film all of these Chanukah episodes in order, but this is actually the last of the 8 that I am filming. So, yeah, I think that that's pretty good. All right, I still have some powder in my hands, but we're gonna cover this up, wait 5 minutes, and then come back. Okay, removing that, and I think if we check, looks like the colors are pretty set. I'm actually really happy with this. Let's remove the yarn, and I'm gonna use my tongs to help drain off some water. But I'm gonna set these aside to cool so we can wash them. And as for what's left, I thought it would be fun to do a little side-by-side and to look at this technique once more using some Superwash Merino yarn. Here we have some Knit Picks Stroll Glimmer. This one is, actually I guess I'll put it like this. This yarn is 75% Superwash Merino. Sorry, it's only 70% Superwash Merino, 25% nylon, and 5% Stellina, which gives it, oh my goodness. Yes, which gives it a hint of a shimmer. It is not nearly as shiny as the Lurex from the Alpaca blend that we were just dyeing, but I thought that this would be a really nice counterpart. And this is also showing, because this is the same pan, that the color was all in our yarn, because I'm not seeing any blues come in here yet. The one other thing I will add is that I had just pre-soaked it for about 10 minutes in plain tap water. This time there's only 100 grams of yarn in the pot versus 300 grams. So the water level is a bit low, or a bit higher. And I do see a little bit of blue color over here towards the end. But the other thing is that there's a lot of dye left in this cup. So let's see what kind of fun patterns we can get. I wish I had weighed how much dye I had at first. So you can definitely see we're getting some like blooms of color, because in the areas the dye is hitting the water before the yarn, but you can also see some itty bitty speckles. I'm adding some of the powder to my hand. In this one, I do want to do a bit overall heavier coverage. We will be flipping the yarn at some point. Presumably. Okay. There. That is this first round of dye. I'm going to wash off the hands. I am wearing a mask and gloves and protective glasses as I am doing this, and all of the utensils and everything I'm using are dedicated dye equipment. I was considering peeling off, but I actually think these struck even in these darker sections. Oh, okay, maybe that has not quite struck. Alright, I do think I want to give this a tiny bit of time. I'm going to reduce the heat, cover this up, and in 5 minutes we will come and flip it over. Okay. I think now, whoa, there's a huge difference in our speckle here. I mean, if you look at a close-up of the yarn, basically all you see are speckles. And I don't think I was doing something absurdly different here. I think that the difference is that speckles hit and love superwash yarn. And so that's why we're seeing more definition here. I'm going to flippy flip our yarn. We already had some reasonable coverage. It's easy to get pretty good coverage on yarn when when you're only doing one skein in one of these pans, just because you can spread it out pretty well. And that is what I am trying to do here, get things nice and spread so we can add the rest of our color. And there's still, I would say a lot, I still got a lot of dye. But I'm going for it. Trying to be a lot heavier around the tie over here and around the tie up here, because I'd like, those are areas where I'd like the color to just penetrate a little more. If that makes sense. Oh no! I got some wet. I got some wet on my hand. That might interrupt my speculitude. Alright. Adding this last little bit of powder. And, well, I've got a bit of a paste on my gloves. But that, I think, is All right. Not only did we not leave any dye behind, but we've got another beautiful sparkly Chanukah yarn. So I'm going to reduce the heat and let this go for 5 minutes, and then we'll come back. Okay. The 5 minutes are up, and we've got a beautiful, beautiful bluey speckled friend. Let's see. Taggy McTaggerson. Yeah, this looks like it's set pretty well. Okay, I'm seeing a tiny bit, maybe a tiniest bit of him, but I'm going to turn off the heat, and I am going to leave this to cool off in the pan a bit. But I am very excited by just how sharp some of these speckles are. Even within this patch that has more colors, you can see the individual specks here. So it's just showing like in clear contrast to what we created on our Alex base. But next time you see me, I'll come back and we'll start washing all of our yarn. I am really digging the way that the Lurex is showing through these dark patches. It's almost giving us like silver speckles on the yarn. Woohoo! Let's wash our yarn. All of it. And let's see, at first look, I'm not seeing any bleeding. It's looking like all of this blue is in our yarn. I do not have a good handle over everything right now, and I do want to be careful to not shred it or make any tangles, but I'm going to add a little bit clear dish soap. Sometimes that can help some stuff come off, or these ties are nylon, so they will actually remain dyed. But all right, I'm now seeing the barest hint of blue coming out. I am going to keep washing the yarn until the water runs clear. Maybe I'll use soap again, but then I'll hang up the yarn to dry and we'll wash our other skein. Let's wash our bonus speckled yarn. I'm expecting that we will see little to no bleeding here as well. I don't have a good handle on it, but my nylon tie does, and that water looks pretty clear to me. I'm now going to add some of the clear dish soap, just a little squirt. Sometimes I find that this can help a little more dye come out, but that is looking rather clear to me. So I'm going to keep washing, and then I'll come back when all the yarn is dry and we'll have some conclusions. When it comes down to the comparison of the Alex versus the Stroll Glimmer, there are a few things that immediately jump out. Alex is way shinier, as it should be. It has a pretty high concentration of Lurex. I forget off the top of my head, but I believe it's over 30%. Whereas the Stroll Glimmer is only 5% Stellina. So this whole yarn has a very silver quality to it, even with the cream base. Whereas this other one has like a bare hint of sparkle. I guess imagine just like a tiny application of a glitter versus dumping the whole thing on top. The other main difference is that this Alex base gives us some really cool silver speckles in these blue patches, which I think is absolutely awesome. There are some tiny little speckles, but they aren't sharp. They definitely spread out a bit. Whereas on the Stroll Glimmer, you can see these sharp speckles all around it. And again, the sparkle is overall way more subtle. Seriously, how cool is that almost reverse speckling you get from the silver Lurex in those blue patches? I would love to do a semi-solid on this base. Here is our dry, shimmery, shimmery, shimmery beauty. And I think that this colorway is gorgeous. With the blue and white and silver, if I said that this was a Chanukah yarn, you would go, oh yeah, I can totally see that. So this one might be a little more literal with the color choices than some of the other videos, but I think that this might be one of my favorite yarns from the whole 8 nights of Chanukah. Where I had the heavier application of dye, you see the darker tones, but I do think we got some powder blue over most of the yarn itself. So whether it's the really, really sharp color, or if we're seeing some more subtle specks, we have a gorgeous, gorgeous colorway. I left these reusable zip ties on until the end because I found that this Lurex yarn is super, super drapey. So having that sturdy additional tie helped me really keep the yarn from getting it tangled as I washed and dried it. Tonight is the 8th night of Chanukah 2018, but don't despair. It's not the end of the ChemKnits Chanukah special. Stay tuned because later tonight there'll be a 9th episode of the Chanukah special where I dye a 9th colorway on a 9th yarn base, which is the limited edition Chanukah colorway I am creating for people who pre-ordered it. And tomorrow I will release a summary video where we're going to take a look at the 9 skeins that I dyed for the 8 nights of Chanukah. Plus we'll see what the mini skeins looked like that I was going to put in the samplers, and we'll talk a little bit about, I guess, the whole experience and the whole journey. But I know that I think you guys will be really excited to see the difference between one of the full skeins of yarn versus a reskeined mini skein, to see how similar or different the colorways might appear. If you enjoyed what you saw, make sure you subscribe to the ChemKnits Tutorials YouTube channel and tap that bell icon to turn on notifications so you do not miss any time that I post. If you missed out on the ChemKnits Chanukah sampler, but you would like to bring home some yarn dyed in one of my dyeing tutorials, check out the ChemKnits Creations Etsy store. I have dozens and dozens of skein of hand-dyed yarn dyed in past and upcoming YouTube videos. In addition to skeins of hand-dyed yarn, there are some dyed-to-order colorways, such as my dip-dyed Broken Violet, and there's also options for sponsoring episodes of the Dye Pot Weekly series. But you can find links to all of that in the video description. I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and thank you so much for watching. Happy Chanukah, everyone!